We'd like to call the February 24th, 2025 Bruce Township Zoning Board of Appeals meeting to order. Dana, roll call, please.
Heller.
Here.
Maas.
Here.
Barrett.
Here.
Zolno.
Here.
Kelkofen.
Here. Stand if you're able for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 4, approval of the agenda.
I move to approve the agenda as submitted.
Support.
I'll second.
Any additions, corrections? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Item 5 is approval of the minutes, previous minutes of the ZBA meeting of November 25th, 2024. Motion to approve.
So moved.
I'll second that.
Moved and supported. Any additions or corrections to the minutes? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Nay. Minutes are passed. Unfinished business. Members of the board have unfinished business. There's obviously nobody in the audience with unfinished business. Item 7, new business. 7A is B4 acquisitions for the variance. I think it's just on 035, right? The other one was gone, so it's on that parcel. Prior to opening the public hearing, I just want to give the board, I guess, an insight as to what occurred with the delay and the agreement, amendment number 5, and how that plays into this. Prior to the last meeting, the Township Planning Commission, as they do, took a look at revising the M1 zoning classification to LI1. When that was done, there were some inadvertent omissions. As a result of that, under LI1, this project was not included. Mini storage facilities wasn't on that list. Subsequent to the date of that meeting, what you have is the 5th Amendment to the conditional zoning agreement spelled out, in effect, regardless of what happens with any changes in the zoning, the terms of the M1 as far as the permitted uses and the special land uses will continue to apply. So regardless of what it will appear as LI1, terms that are in M1 will continue to apply to this piece of property. So if there are any questions, or did I sufficiently confuse you? So,
Absolutely.
good. I've accomplished my mission.
So as I understand it from talking to Dana the other day, they've since added that back in. We're in process of adding
Yes.
it back in anyway,
Yes.
so
Yes. Regardless of whether it is in LI1 or not,
the fact that it was in MI1, or M1.
and, yeah, the
We're good.
fact that it's in M1 is what's pertinent to this. So at this point, I will entertain a motion to open the public hearing on the variance request by B4 Acquisitions. The applicant has as much time as they need to make the presentation. If there are questions, you can answer them. And prior to the close of the public hearing, if there's anything that comes to mind or you think is important or relevant to what we need to make the decision, you're free to do it. It's a formal process, but we try to make it just a little bit less formal so that people have the opportunity to present what needs to be presented and to clarify anything that needs to be clarified. If there's any public participation during the public hearing, it is specific to this item. There's the opportunity afterwards to speak to other issues. In order to be approved or denied, 3 affirmative votes of this board are required.
I'll move to open the public hearing.
Second.
Moved and supported at 6:08. Public hearing is open, so you may present.
Set up just a simple site plan, sorry. Good evening, board members. My name is Justin Raz from Raz Building and Development. I have quite a lengthy history with this piece of property as well as the surrounding pieces. Our company sold this parcel that we're discussing this evening to B4 Acquisitions. I think it was
I just need, you are going to act as their representative.
Carlo and I are both going to
Okay, so-
represent tonight.
Okay.
Yes. So as I was saying, we sold this piece of land to B4 Acquisitions right around, I think it was June of last year. And we sold it to them after the Fifth Amendment to our conditional rezoning agreement, which you explained to the board members previously at this meeting. The property is governed by what's called a conditional zoning agreement. We started that out back in 2008, I believe, and have amended it 5 times for various reasons. So the zoning configuration on this piece of property has changed, it's been modified, all with approvals through the Planning Commission as well as the board. Attorneys have reviewed all the documents and everything is up to snuff as it needs to be for this meeting this evening. What we're in here tonight for is to see if you'll grant us a variance on one very specific piece from the M1/LI zoning ordinance. Specifically, the yard setback, which is the rear yard setback, abutting non-LI or M1 zonings. North of this property is an approved project. It's actually north and east. If I could step around and just kind of show you here what we're dealing with. So the parcel of land enters in off of 33 Mile Road right here. That'll work. It actually comes across up, continues here, and then it travels north up in this configuration. So it's kind of a puzzle-shaped piece. On this side of the property, we have M1. Trilogy Health Systems operates Orchard Grove convalescent care facility over here. And these depictions on your graphic here are future condominiums for rent that Aragona Properties has been approved for and has been engineering approved for. It's called the Homestead. I'll turn that on. Like this? Yep. There's a main access road that actually travels up off the 33 Mile Road and enters into that 31 acres worth of land. And the the areas that we're talking about today are the setback between before acquisitions storage building in this L-shaped configuration here. So the rear yard, side yard, I guess you could call it here, it's kind of an odd, configuration, but at any rate, the ordinance dictates a 50-foot minimum setback when you're abutting non-like zoning. So we're here this evening to see if we can go from 50 feet down to 30 feet. And that's what we've depicted. The initial application and graphics that you would have received in your packet, we were originally going to ask for a 10-foot setback. I guess it's good that we had the delay in the previous meeting, because that's what we were aiming to come in for, was a 40-foot variance instead of a 20. And as luck would have it, we had some communication with the powers that be here, Dana and Mike Philbrook. I believe they had some communication possibly with the chair, and we went back to the drawing board. So we're here tonight with what we think is a very amicable solution to our issue. The main thing for B4 and for us selling it to B4 is the idea that we've been working for 15 years trying to cut up, sell, and develop this piece of property. Originally, I'd come in to do another condominium for rent project on the east side of this property, got approved for it, went through all of the approvals, engineering and permitting, and then COVID happened. So we elected to change gears on that and sell to Aragona Properties. They changed the style of the units, and we also changed the location of the property, which in essence left this dog-legged configuration puzzle piece of a piece of land. And it just came down to how much land they needed per unit. It came down to drawing boundary lines and selling pieces of property. And that's really what gives these guys the hardship this evening of needing this, this variance, and ultimately, seeking it. There's a couple of points from the ordinance that I would like to point out that I'm sure you're aware of, but RM1 zoning is a residential multiple zoning. You can do residential multiple on 12,000 square feet of land, according to the ordinance. You need a specific width, with the depth ratio and so on. Your front yard setback is 50 feet in RM1, 20-foot side and 50-foot rear. Now, what Aragona Properties has done is they've followed that ordinance to the T. So they have, at the rear of those buildings depicted in your graphics today, more than 50 feet of land between building to property line in both of the areas we're seeking variance. The second thing is that another zoning in your district, restricted office, outlines the idea in some of the verbiage in the ordinance that it may be used as a buffer next to residential. Now, this again is a piece of property that you could do 15,000 square foot lot on and abut regular residential, not residential multiple. The idea that this is residential multiple and a for rent product makes it more of a commercial use than it does a true residential use. True residential use, in my interpretation or my mind, is the idea that you have a single family lot following ordinance guidelines, as big or as small as it may be. Could be 5 acres, could be 10 acres, could be 20,000 square feet, as long as it's zoned in the right area. Everybody living in those single-family residential homes is going to have their yard. They're going to use it just like all of us do. Maybe you like to sit on your front porch or your back deck. Maybe you've got a place set in the back or a pool. This situation's different, because in this residential multiple setting, the way they're approved is that they have drive lanes that come from the street around the side and into the rear of the building where all of their garages are at. So you've already got a drive lane setting into the garages and parking of all of these buildings in that development, which creates not only a natural buffer, but a little bit different idea than you would have in normal residential settings. Most garages are going to come in off the street. You can either drive straight in or do a side entrance toward the front of the garage. This is different in the instance that when B4 was designing this, they looked at that and they said, you know what? We can only get so many square feet on this piece of property, and we want to try to bring something that the community doesn't have, and that's this self-storage. Now, again, these are rental apartment-style condominium units. You've got limited storage. They're going to be built in a slab. They will have no basement. This is a perfect product to accompany what Aragona Properties and the Homestead's providing for the community. So when looking at the setbacks, they decided to go ahead and design for the idea that we're going to try to get as close to what we can to meet what it would naturally be if everybody followed the zoning ordinance. So when you look at the LI zoning, needing this 50 feet in a non-abutting, dissimilar group, we would have 100 feet from building to building. If everybody followed the ordinance to a T, you would have 100 feet from building to building. If you look at the dimensions on not only B4 Acquisitions graphics, but if you pay attention to the graphics on Aragona's, you're going to end up with 92 feet and 87 feet between buildings, which is very close to complying with that 100 if we follow the ordinance to a T. That's why we think that it's logical this evening to try to go forward and approve this amendment so that we can move forward to the next stage, which would be a special land use and then the Planning Commission approval for site plan. Now, Carlo's got some information here as well that he'd like to provide tonight, and I'm going to let him go ahead and speak to that.
Thank you, Justin. Justin did a very good job of,
Could you step to the mic?
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you.
Justin did a pretty good job telling most of the story, but I just wanted to kind of explain to you guys how we got here. Originally, we were looking at purchasing the property for our headquarters for our concrete company, and kind of figured out quickly with the surrounding developments and whatnot that it just wasn't going to be a good fit. So we wanted to try to come up with a good development that we feel could be a good, asset to the community. So when we started thinking about what we wanted to do, we were, bringing this to Aragona as well. I had a few meetings with them on kind of picking their brains, knowing that, that they would, be the most directly, impacted by something like this. So we kind of went with them on some ideas and said, hey, what do you guys think about this? And, just trying to be good neighbors and just also try to make, good use of the property for how it fits and shaped and whatnot. And so this, the one down here is that's where the 10-foot, 10-foot off variance. That was the first one we were going to go in with, and then when we had some feedback there, we kind of moved some things around. The original intent with the first design was, again, kind of brought more so along with Aragona, like trying to kind of surround the property and use the buildings as a fence, if you will. So, to kind of give them more privacy. That was the intent of the first design. And then we ended up here, and this is where we're at now. That's Aragona's property there. And then that one next to it is the three buildings. That's just kind of shows the setbacks of from their buildings to the property lines. That's the rendering, the updated rendering of what we would like to do. And that last one over there on the floor, that's just a building elevation of what the front building will look like along with the one next to it on this separate parcel that is there. Yeah, in addition to that, so I went out to all the surrounding neighbors that I could get a hold of and whatnot, and I brought with me tonight letters of their approval, supporting their, not approval, yeah, support for the initial variance essentially with the 10-foot. Just, you know, I just went to them to see if they would support us and, you know, show them the plans and explain to them what we're doing. And if you'd like, I can pass that out to you guys.
Could you bring the 3D picture up closer to us, please?
I have a smaller one too.
So, we've got this main building here. Yeah. And then this is
It's
the one
mainly
that,
this one right here.
yeah, that got pushed back, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so, now, I understand that there's going to be a wall here.
So they're
Is that-
using a
You can ask
combination
him.
of fencing and the buildings off the letters there. So originally, there was going to be, all the way from over here, a screen wall that was built all the way along. And then we were gonna, we actually talked about this in the rezoning meeting. We conditioned the zoning amendment with a lot of discussion because originally this was zoned C2. It was zoned M1, then it was zoned C2, then it was back to M1. Okay. And ultimately, Aragona had concerns at that time and objected. But we came to an agreement with them and the township that if we conditioned the uses, and that's what that Amendment 5 really outlines, and that's why the zoning ordinance is attached to that zone. We came to an amicable solution to their objections with the idea, and we even attached a preliminary of the original 10-foot variance site plan, 40-foot variance. And the idea is that as a defining buffer between this project and their project, that there would be a combination of fencing, screen walls, concrete block walls that would definitively screen out any business from our M1 property. Obviously, we've done a better job now with the 30-foot from property line to building. And we're still using the back of the building as a buffer. They plan to build these buildings, instead of your typical mini storage, pole barn steel, they're gonna use a split face block, just like a commercial building would be. And really, if you look at a lot of commercial buildings, they'll use the split face block, brick, stone, all on the front facade and the exterior, and the backs of the buildings will just be regular block. So these guys are going to the extra effort and extra expense to make something look nice for their neighbors, along with landscaping and the proper screening that's all dictated by the ordinance.
So at this point, are you saying that there's no actual fence between, or on the lot line?
Correct.
Okay,
The fence is gonna do a couple of different things. They're gonna use the fencing on the lot line where it needs to be, and then jog the fence back into the building and allow the building to get a buffer.
Is that what you're showing between the buildings here?
I gotta look at it.
Yeah, I know.
Sorry.
This one actually is.
Yeah,
Between,
yes.
yeah, so the fence kicks out.
Fence line here, it comes back into the building is the buffer along here. Obviously, this being secured storage,
Yeah.
it's gonna, jog
Then
back
you
in,
need
follow
fence.
the parking lot. This dark shadowed line is actually the fencing coming along, down the line and then across here.
Okay, because my concern is, when you have residences, it's not showing the parking on the backside of the apartments, is it?
Let me
On
pull the
that?
site plan up here. Grab their-
According to the site plan, it
Yeah, the
shows
way
it,
we have
but
it
it didn't
done
show
in
up on
here.
These are
your,
all
3D.
drive lanes
Parking space.
and parking spaces.
Yeah, which,
Okay,
that- it
it
doesn't seem
doesn't-
like that
Yeah, I
picture.
don't think they could get into quite enough detail. They do have
Sure.
the drive lanes. And
Okay.
you can barely see some overhead doors depicted in those.
Okay, so it is there.
Yeah.
It just looks a lot closer here than it does in your picture.
Right, yeah, and if you, this one actually, tell a little bit better, Stan. So,
This one's actually a little bit, this one came in late, just we had the rendering guy had to clean it up, and add this fence here, the screen wall. And
So
then
that
that'll
it, so
kinda
that it jogs back in, the split face, block of the building will be the buffer.
Gotcha, okay.
And then the fencing will continue around.
yeah.
Okay.
My concern was, when you have families with kids in a residential area, apartment area like that, and then you have probably hundreds of people that are going to be coming and going, you have no idea who they are, to let them have possible access to those backyards would be a no-no in my mind.
Well, and
So-
you've got dual purpose is what you have. You have really probably one of the least invasive uses in LI zoning, being the individual storage, because people are gonna bring their stuff, they're gonna drop it off, and it's gonna sit there, in all reality.
Yeah, I know that.
If they need some skis for a ski trip, or they gotta pick up, their four-wheeler or whatever they're storing in these buildings, they're gonna come in, grab it, and they're gonna be gone,
Yeah,
which is much different than your typical manufacturing practices. You're gonna have deliveries, you're gonna have trucks, you're gonna have employees coming and going, you might even have 2 or 3 shifts.
well, as long as that's your plan, is to totally secure that from anyone being able to, unless they want to jump a fence, of course,
And they wanna secure
or
it
get
for
through.
the clients.
That's what you're going to be doing, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. You guys want to see this down there?
Just looks, on the picture, it looks like there's a whole lot more room between buildings than what it shows
Yeah.
on the actual.
Yeah.
No, that's.
We have to remember, what was it, 87 and 92,
Yeah, it's,
basically?
from the property line to the edge of the building, 62 feet on one side and 57 feet on the other side.
So the first question that comes to my head here, right, is this main center building, as you're showing it in your plans, all access is from the outside, so there's no interior hallway or anything, correct?
Correct.
And most storage units are typically 20 foot deep, and that's what you have in your other 2 buildings, right? So this is 46, which, I mean, you could, if you're going with 20-foot depth in both sides, you could reduce that by 6 feet, and that's almost, it's a third of the setback you're asking to reduce right there, right? And still keep this building.
So we've
So-
already reduced drive lanes around the building.
Okay?
In order to get to where we are today. Again, the big thing is that, like you're saying, a lot of units are just that 20 feet deep. Some are even smaller than that.
Sure.
Our company actually looked at doing a similar use, but an indoor type of heated storage type of facility. So we had a study done telling us what the community could use. Spent a lot of money on it, never ended up building the project, but ultimately, it's amazing when you look at a study like that, because it actually gives you a huge variety of different sizes. And the idea that they would be able to do, a 20-foot deep building here, and maybe 22 and 22. The other thing is that you can vary the width of the building as well. A lot of the primary spaces in that study, we're talking about a 10 by 10 size. 10 by 15, 10 by 20.
Yep.
And then we got into some of the bigger ones. I think what they're doing is more of a garage style, which again, is gonna give them less clientele, everybody's renting by the square footage. the price didn't necessarily go up because the unit was bigger. It kind of stayed similar price per square foot. But ultimately, they did trim down from the original that we came in for a 40-foot variance. And I think you have less square footage now than you did then. So, I mean, they've trimmed as much fat as
Well, so the reason I asked that though, and I understand, because we've had that discussion, right, that we've reduced the request, but what we have to look at is the practical difficulty. And the land does not cause you that difficulty. What causes you the difficulty is the way that land was subdivided, right? And now you're trying to build a building on a subdivided piece of property. And what you're trying to do, and I would do the same thing, you're trying to get as much building onto that piece of property as possible, but that's not a reason for a variance. It doesn't fit the rule of practical difficulty, and that's where I'm stumbling on this, right? And I commend you for all what you did already, and I'd be doing the same thing, but to understand what we have to judge it against is the rules, right?
So when you've granted variances for practical difficulty in the past, can you give an example?
Yeah, I can give you examples of what we would look at for a practical difficulty in the land. If you have excessive wetlands on a piece of property, if you're familiar with Queensland,
Give me a location, please.
it's down 35 Mile Road. It has wetlands in 3 or 4 of the lots, unless there was a variance, would have made it virtually impossible for the builder to put a home there.
Okay.
If there are excessive slopes on property where you can't get the setback because it would put something over the side of a hill, if you have a heavily treed area that even though you would remove the trees, the vegetation and the topography of the land would prevent somebody from reasonably placing a building there, are the kinds of reasons that the normal variance that you would probably look at is about 10 feet. When you get a situation, particularly where there's like a wetland or a really a challenging site for somebody to put up a building, I think the biggest one was, I think, maybe 20 feet, 25 feet in Queensland, and that's because of the wetlands. And because of the wetlands, I'm sure you're familiar, there are also requirements on how you have to grade, what you can't do, which makes it even difficult to build on that piece of property with a variance. So
We've been down the road with wetlands before. We've actually had to mitigate wetlands on properties that we've owned. Back when EGLE, EQ, allowed you to mitigate. Mitigation process is not simple. When you do a mitigation, it costs you money. And they've actually catered it today so that in lieu of mitigating on your own property, if you have it to mitigate on, they require you to essentially pay them because they've already acquired some wetlands somewhere else. I understand from your perspective, granting a variance because of wetlands or topography or something like that. But ultimately, it does come back to the same thing that these guys are talking about here, money. It comes back to the practicality of being able to put what you want to.
but that's not one of the criteria that we have to look at. What we have to look at, and what has not been at least presented here, is what difficulty does this piece of property present to prevent someone for developing it as zoned?
Irregular shape.
But that irregular shape doesn't prevent you from
Well-
putting another use that's authorized, an authorized use from putting it on there, because what you want won't fit on there
Well, and
is not a reason.
And with respect, we're just having a discussion, but I believe the area that we're talking about here is about 160 feet wide. Okay, 154. So when you try to comply with that 50 foot regardless, you end up with a long skinny building.
Yes, you could build the one building in the middle and be in.
Yes,
We could.
Yeah.
We
it could
absolutely-
be used.
The cost of doing so, and again, we're here tonight as a, as a precursor to other things that we have to accomplish. We have to get a special land use. It is a special land use in the MI ordinance.
Right.
So we're not guaranteed that either. Without something tonight, we're gonna struggle moving forward at all.
Yes,
Okay.
we understand that.
Again, I think that the idea here that we've come up with is a good one. I think it's a need in the community, especially with what's zoned around us. If it were, like you said, Jenny, this wouldn't be a reasonable request, I don't think. If this was normal residential, if this was R1C, one of the smaller lots, and you have families with play structures out in the backyard. But because it's more of a commercial use, a for-rent product, where you're gonna have small units, people coming and going, they're gonna come, they're gonna stay the night, they're gonna go to work the next day. I don't know, I don't think they get over a 3-bedroom unit there. And I think they're gonna need some storage. And these guys are trying to provide that for the community.
Before we go any further, let me take care of this business. Will you please enter the letters into the record? And show that they are entered into the record. None of these are from anyone that's going to live there or from residents of the facility next door, correct?
Well, it's it's all the surrounding property owners, so Aragona.
They don't live there, though?
No.
No, okay. Yeah, I just wanted to clarify
But they're the
that.
ones affected, when we had to come.
Yes, I understand. I just want to make sure that everyone understands that there are no residents or any individual that's going to live there that has approved it. It's the property owners or business owners in the area. But they will be in the record as letters of support for your project. Are there any other questions from board members before we close the public hearing?
I had a question, 2 questions. What kind of material are you going to be using, like for soffits and that type of thing, other than the brick or block that you're using? Like,
Well, it's going to be, this split face block on the outside, and then, we were originally thinking doing a gable roof.
I just mean, is it going to be totally maintenance-free, like aluminum, soffits, and all that kind of stuff? So it's going to be no painting
Correct.
required? Okay.
That stuff will all be, they'll go over all that in planning, that's really.
Okay, just want to
Yep,
bring
that's
that
their
to the...
issue.
And also, I had a question, the way you answered one of these requirements here on the front page. The question was, would the standard for which the variance could be granted unreasonably prevent the applicant from using the property for a permitted purpose or render conformity unnecessarily burdensome? And you said no. I think that's where the issue is here. There really isn't anything keeping you from building the buildings and putting in the roads and everything else. It's just that you just want more than what we allow you to have, basically, according to the way you answered that. You
Well-
just said there's no problem there.
The
So,
reason that we answered it that way, though, is due to the fact that they are doing a mixed use on this piece of property. So they are going to have some for-rent product of LI space, where people can actually come in and set up a cabinet shop or a small manufacturing facility or storage facility for their business. They can run their business out of these other spaces. And when you look up and down the corridor, you're seeing a lot more of that. They were trying to do something unique here. And the whole idea behind answering no to that is the fact that they feel that the market's flooded on that aspect of things. This is going to be a building in narrow width, in extreme length, that you cannot follow the ordinance to get proper access and parking around. Even with that 50 feet, that's why they changed the other one. When you take a look at the one that we are not for the variance for this evening, this flex industrial building right here was butted right up to, you know, the 10-foot marker off the property line. They've since changed that and reoriented it to this. I'll bring it up a little bit closer.
No, I think we understand that. I think Jenny's question is, if you answer no to that question, our question becomes, why are you even here? Because you've basically stated, yes, we can develop that piece of property even though it's that shape. So, but that's, I think that's the question.
Yeah, that's exactly
We
it.
understand that that's not,
Conforming use. That's where the question gets.
well, yes, and you can develop it for a conforming use, perhaps not with that configuration.
But that's.
But I think we need to not get hung up on this one right now, because there's a lot of other things that we can go over and talk about on your proposal and how to take a look at this perhaps through a little different kind of lens, okay? Are there any other questions that any of the,
And the application itself
Okay.
now, the one I have, it's still saying, it's buried in here somewhere.
Yeah, there's
The
two.
application is still saying requesting a variance from 50-foot to 10-foot.
now,
So
there's,
is that changed?
yeah,
We did
that's,
second.
that's,
Second
Should be in
there's
the
a-
new, the
In
new.
the
the
new
new
one,
one that was
okay.
in the new packet,
Make
yeah,
sure.
that's correct, they have that one correct. Laura, you have any questions? Kurt? I have some questions.
Explanation.
On your
Okay, 32, already.
3D model, drawing there, is that going to be pretty much, I guess my question is, are you going to have anything on the rooftops of those buildings as far as heating, ventilating, et cetera?
The light industrial building?
Mm-hmm.
I would think there might be a, HVAC unit or something of
Okay.
some sort.
You see, I'm thinking of the perspective of folks next door on the upper floors, what they're going to look down on.
They're all ranch-style units.
No,
Those are all ranch.
in the senior facility.
Well, that's like zoning there.
I understand that. My question is, are they going to be looking at,
It has to be screened by the ordinance.
it has to be screened, but it's still there for them to see? That's my question. So as far as you know, probably will be a regular
Yeah, I mean, if we
commercial.
can,
Okay.
rework it to put a, a AC unit outside the door, we can work through that.
Okay. The, are the storage units heated?
No,
Can they be heated?
it's not the intent, but,
So you're not going to run like gas lines or anything through them so that they could be heated and used for other purposes other than storage?
just, yeah.
What kind of electrical are you providing in those?
Whatever is,
Basic 110 power,
Okay,
light
basic
switch,
110.
and maybe a
Yep,
plug for a
yep.
block heater or
Okay.
something like that.
No 220 or
No.
no access to
No.
anything like that? Okay. What are you anticipating the uses of your flex buildings? What kind of tenants are you going to try to attract?
Anything that fits the ordinance in LI or M1. But we've obviously already restricted those on some of the uses,
On
so.
some of the uses?
Yeah.
Okay.
Are you going to redo somewhat of your landscape plan? The one that I was looking at, and I must say, I was very pleased to see that you used all native plants and trees. on your whole plan. So, yeah, thank you for making sure you didn't use like scrub kind of stuff and things that just aren't good. But anyway, on the new plan now, of course, we only got the layout. We didn't see a new landscape plan.
Well, the ordinance for the planning commission is very specific on what needs to be there for landscaping, and landscaping would be approved by the planning commission.
Okay. Are you going to redo that landscape plan before you present it back to the,
It probably needs to be tuned up now that the building's been reconfigured on the site.
right? So what I'm proposing right now is you take this into consideration, your landscape plan. That hackberry tree is a really nice tree. And I'd like to see it, since you now have some landscape area along the back side, in both areas. You can, like, take it away from the front of the building or some of those other areas that you have along, well, whatever, but move them into those areas. I think it would be a really nice way to buffer these buildings, again, for visuals. And I don't know if there's any, doesn't really look like there's any room along the east side for any kind of landscaping other than little small things.
They're not regulated on that side because of the zoning.
Oh, okay.
Well, I think there's still
All right.
perhaps a landscaping requirement, but again, a lot of that will be handled at.
All right, good.
Joe Tangari, our planner, does a really good job with that, making sure.
Okay, great. But I really would like to see that included, if this should, if there's any chance, I don't know, along those two lines, for the record.
Are there any other questions? Any other
Comments?
Yeah, for the public hearing portion of it.
Yeah, I mean, so they can reply. I still struggle with the fact that we're not creating a difficulty. We could get through most of this variance. You're looking for 20 feet. You have the opportunity to narrow up those buildings and get that down to a reasonable amount. A 20-feet variance is still, like you said, it's twice what the typical variant would be in Bruce. And by narrowing up those buildings, yeah, you're reducing your square footage, but that would be better than removing that whole strip, correct? And we could then get to a small variance, which I think would be a lot easier to swallow. And with your point, and it was a very good point, that this residential is not privately owned, so that makes sense. I just struggle still with trying to apply the rules and then.
And I can appreciate that. I guess the big thing that I'm hanging my hat on tonight with regard to 20 versus 10 of variance is the idea that if both Aragona and us followed to the letter of the ordinance, 50 feet and 50 feet, which we understand they're more than 50 feet. We're really looking at 8 feet in one area and 12 in another. That's really what it comes
That's
down to.
from building to building, but not from lot line.
It's building to building. You're absolutely right. But it would be building to building.
Yes, I understand what you're
Okay.
saying, yeah, and I think you've made a good faith effort to try to keep some separation from that, and at least I do recognize that you're looking at 100 feet just about on both sides, well, more with the parking lot, so that, that does have some impact, I understand that. Is there anything else under the public hearing portion that you want to add? What the process is from here, we close the public hearing, and then we discuss the presentation. If we have any other questions, we'll ask them. If you hear us say something that you feel needs to be clarified, or we need further information, just let us know, and I'll be happy to have the information, even though the hearing is closed.
Yeah.
So this is,
I guess, excuse me, the only thing that I would say in addition, and then we can close the hearing, is the idea that when Carlo went out to all of the neighboring properties, and albeit they're institutional convalescent care, they're M1 LI manufacturing, commercial 2, this is not your traditional Bruce Township setting when it comes to the use groups that are allowed on this piece of property. And the fact that he brought you letters tonight from everybody that would participate, or that he could get a hold of, with no real objection to a 40-foot variance, should carry some weight, in my opinion.
And also, to add to that, I believe what is it, the senior center?
Convalescent care?
Yeah, they, I believe, approached Mike Philbrook to ask him about what we were doing, and they must have gotten a letter. I think they maybe went to Philbrook or something along those lines.
Public notice, yeah.
And Mike Philbrook explained to him, or maybe even showed him the plans, and they were okay with it, and essentially didn't have, and that is at this plan. And just so you guys know, we tried to develop this thing, just these mini storages here alone, to try to create more of a, kind of a, I'm gonna call it a quiet development. I mean, the intent here.
It's a
with the
buffer.
buildings and on the original 10-foot off the property line was to kind of create and use those buildings as essentially a fence. And we wanted to, decorate this, with nice materials and gable roofs and things like that. So it almost looks like a house per se. And just trying to make the best that we could with a development that was just kind of odd shaped, and also, have a good, be a good neighbor for the, Aragonas, and thinking about the future residents, and, opposed to trying to put like the multi-tenant, type of building where there could be just, I guess, louder type of tenants that are,
More invasive use.
more,
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a really quiet buffering type of project. But yeah, that's about it.
okay. Before we close the public hearing, no, I think we'll close the public hearing and then I'll go over the requirements. Anything else you'd like to say? Okay, and again, you'll have opportunities to answer anything. So, okay, at this, I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing at 7:52.
Support.
I'm sorry, 6:52. Yeah,
Good catch.
oh, this daylight savings. Support, moved and supported, public hearing is closed at this point. Prior to our discussion, I want to go over a couple of things so that you understand what the limits of the criteria that we have to consider as we come to a decision on this. And I don't know if you've looked at them, but if not, I'm going to kind of paraphrase them rather than read them verbatim. Number one, strict enforcement of the zoning ordinance would cause a practical difficulty, as has been discussed, and deprive the owner or rights enjoyed by all other property owners owning property within the district. You can't use the property, basically, is what it's saying, because of the strict enforcement of the ordinance. The conditions and circumstances are unique to the subject property and are not similarly applicable to other properties in the same zoning district. Conditions and circumstances unique to the property weren't created by the property owner or his predecessor in title. Requested variance will not confer special privileges that are denied to other properties similarly situated in the same zoning district. And the requested variance won't be contrary to the spirit and intent of the Bruce Township zoning ordinance. Before we enter into the discussion. I got more notes and more yellow tags in this thing for this process than I've had for, I don't think, any other one. I want to read from the M1 Light Manufacturing, the purpose and intent of this section. The light manufacturing district is designed to primarily accommodate wholesale activities, warehouses, and industrial operations conducted wholly within a building and whose external physical effects are restricted to the area of the district and in no manner affect in a detrimental way any of the surrounding districts. So as we're looking at your use of the property and your rights to the property, we are also going to look at the effect on neighboring properties and if there are any detrimental effects to those properties. So it's going to be a little bit broader question. With that being said, I have some other comments to make, I guess, before we discuss this, to maybe put a little different, or at least put some perspective on it. I think everyone is aware, and if not, to clearly understand that the variance is granted to the property, not to the property owner. So if a variance is granted tonight and you sell it tomorrow morning, whatever use is there, and if it's within the ordinance, has the same variance that you do, regardless of what it is. So that is also a serious consideration that we have to keep in the forefront as we discuss and go through this process.
I have a question about that. Can you condition that?
We can put conditions on it.
Okay.
We cannot condition the uses. That would be,
I understand
that would
that.
be changing the ordinance. But there are other conditions that can be put on the property, some of which are in the ordinance, but once you apply for the variance, can be changed. M1 or LI1, surrounded by residential property, creates more complaints than any other zoning districts next to each other. So as we go through this, it would be my intent to look at this from the perspective of if it looks like there may be an approval, how do we mitigate, eliminate complaints and issues from residents that affect them, that affect the property owner, that affect the business owners, and affect the township in having to try to deal with these things. I think there's maybe some ways that that could be accomplished as we go through the process. But that is a big, big issue. It's, how many gray hairs do you want? How many gray hairs does the township want as you look at this? The primary areas of concern, I think, have been discussed. The property, the configuration of the property was clearly the previous owner. When they made their splits and did all the other reconfiguring, how that ended up was a direct result of decisions that they made. Looking at putting an M1 in the middle of residential, you have noise issues, you have lighting issues, you have screening issues. And to your point, the many many of the permitted uses and the special land uses would be a much bigger nuisance in a M1 district to the surrounding properties. For all intent and purposes, your proposed use is probably the most neighbor-friendly of many that could be in there. But there are still the hurdles that we have to take a look at, and one is the practical difficulty, and the other is the configuration of the land is a result of decisions that were made by the prior owner, and clearly that's one of the areas that we have to look at. So with that, I don't know if there's any other comments that people want to make, questions that we have.
So there's not going to be any screening on the east lot line, correct?
If additional screening on the east lot line is something that is an important item to be considered under the conditions, if it were approved, that would be a condition that could be added.
But the east lot line doesn't really have anything to do with the concern with the setback right now, right?
No, true. It does not. That's like zoning, that's.
Right.
Even though it's that facility, the zoning of the property remains M1.
Yeah, and something.
Sure.
We're willing to, work with you on the east side there, and, if we got to put a condition in there regarding the type of screening we do on that east side, we're happy to do that, and, here to work with you guys on
Good.
anything that may be reasonable.
Any other
Is that
comment?
a planning issue more than for us?
No, that we can, it is a planning issue, but we can add that as a condition. And then the detail, the nitty-gritty, the dot and the I, cross the T, would be under planning when Joe would look at it.
Okay.
Roy, any questions? Anything further from any of the board members? Pretty quiet up here.
What would it do, and I know what it would, I kind of know the answer to this question. What would it do if you only put one building in that north-south run? Make it a little bigger, make one building a little bigger. How many units would you lose by doing that?
It just, quite a bit. Yeah.
Better than half.
The intent to, I know it's not a right thought, but I mean, at least in my mind, we were really trying to achieve, what we thought, including Arizona. We brought them in on every single step of the way, as we were kind of trying to design this thing, with the intent of how can we, screen, both essentially. How can we, what is it? We started with what is the most quiet, least invasive type of development we could put in this odd shape that we bought, what can we put here that's the least impactful type of development? And that's where we came up with these mini storages, and then, we discussed these things with the Aragonas, and, that's sort of, we had the thought of, hey, get these buildings on close to the lot line, and build with a nicer material, like Justin was saying, aside from just a typical, metal building, and use the split face block as a screen wall, and, not have a wall with you know, a metal building there, right? So, you know, these mini storages, they could be designed with a single slope roof and smaller units, I mean, however which way you want to do it. But, you know, our design intent was to have a, you know, split face block around the perimeter with a gable roof, which is, you know, significantly more, you know, cost than normal for a mini storage. You know, again, trying to partner with our neighbors and you know, give it a better look overall and with the screening as well.
Can I say something? Just looking at it and imagining I'm the person living in those apartments, I personally would rather have the backside of a wall that's screened than open doors looking into possible people coming and going. I would feel safer. I know that you know, so you're proposing, or your question is if they took out this right along the property line.
Right, and then we'll have driveways on either side of that, right? So we didn't want to have that, because if you have a new moving truck in, then, you know, you can kind of, you'll still be able to see over, right? That's why we wanted the original intent.
Doors to the interior of the driveway.
That's the answer I thought I knew.
And same with the Flex building on other property there. If you notice, the first one, I don't know if it's still there, the building was also put along the 10-foot off from the property. Again, kind of, we discussed there, just ideas, right? And the intent was the same with that one. How can we have the most, you know, less impactful type of, and more screening to add to that, right? So that's why there was designed like that, so.
Yeah, I would just feel more private in my residence if I'm looking at a solid versus doors that are being accessed. I don't know.
And with regard
Good
to
point.
those units,
That makes sense.
and with regard to those units, you know, you've got 4 single-stall garages in the center of those buildings. You have 2 end units that only have 1 window on each south-facing or east-facing side that would even look out onto the drive lane, the green belt, or their development. So again, this is a very non-traditional, maybe first-time development in this community. And again, I understand you have a criteria, et cetera, but I think this is a really good use for this property.
I don't disagree at all with the use. And I commend your efforts of getting this to fit in there, right?
But, you know, like he was saying, you know, if we move the buildings over, sure, we could do it, you know, but then we'll have a drive lane on either side, and we just personally just didn't want that. We didn't feel that that was gonna be the right thing for the community overall, and especially, you know, the neighbors. We really truly did consider everything about this here. It wasn't just, how can we, you know, put as many units here? It wasn't like that. It was, you know, we had, you know, split face blocks shown on our plan. We had gable roofs. You know, all of that is something you don't typically see in mini storage, because it costs a lot more. And, you know, we wanted to try to make a good, you know, quiet type of development out of what we have is just kind of an odd-shaped lot. So, you know, that's why the buildings were on the perimeters to begin with, and that's why there's now a driveway on the east side.
Are you guys, so somebody asked the question, if they were to eliminate the L-shaped building, we'd be down by approximately half of the square footage that we currently have. And it's their decision, not mine, but just to throw something out, if they were to shrink that building, say down to, instead of 20 feet, it'd go down to 15 or something like that. And instead of the depth of the units being your large number, maybe the width be the large number. That way we get even that much closer to compliance.
Well, and that's what I was asking earlier, right? You got 46 feet across the center building.
Which,
If you-
again, that's 2 units back to back.
It's 2 back to back, so that's 23 apiece. Standard is 20, right? If we reduce that to 20, and you reduce the 20-footers on the opposite side to 15, you're picking up almost half the variance, and you're getting down to something that would be easier for us to approve, in my opinion. Right?
Yeah, we could definitely, reconfigure it a little bit. I mean, I know we're asking for a 20-foot. Would you be okay with 15? Would that?
I don't know if there's a magic number, I'm just trying to get it to fit within what, because if we go by the rules, the two things that you brought up are, it was self-made by the property owner, and we don't really have a
True practical
true practical difficulty, right? So we have to be able to justify approving it outside of those two things, and I haven't gotten there yet. Yeah, and personally, I like the whole thing. It makes sense. I'm just trying to make it work, right?
The only problem is taking 5 more feet out doesn't overcome self-created.
It doesn't overcome either of them.
It doesn't overcome either of them.
Right.
So I don't know if it's.
That's what I'm saying, I don't think there's a magic number, right?
No, I don't think there is a magic number. Any other comments people have?
See, another thing too
Yeah.
is I think, pretty sure we can have a building, let's just say if those buildings were, 10 feet off, or even if it was at, if it was at 50 feet, you could technically have a drive lane in there, it's just a building.
Is that more palatable? If they were to run a drive lane around the whole perimeter of the self-storage?
In reality, I think your configuration is probably the best configuration for all the circumstances. As Dana said, what do you want to see? What do you want to hear? One of my concerns is it can be quiet, it can be everything until you decide somebody comes in one of your flex buildings. Because what they can put in there is a pretty broad range of activities, not all of which are real quiet.
But the flex buildings aren't on your docket tonight.
Yeah, that's way up front.
It's the whole piece of property that's on our docket tonight. If you've come in for a variance on that piece of property, I can't tell you, who you can put in there. That's not my point. My point is that we can take all the steps to ensure privacy, light issues, and quiet on that end. But what goes in the flex buildings, we can't tell you what to do, but they can create all the issues with noise, light, et cetera, that goes
And I see
on.
where you're coming from, but the big thing is that if you do have that L-shaped building there, that's a buffer, a quiet buffer between it. And,
For one of them.
and
And the other one's a couple hundred feet away, I understand. Anything else?
What type of lighting are you going to be implementing there? I don't see any lighting. I know Bruce has a
Lighting.
we have to
ordinance,
follow
right?
that
So
strictly. It has to be 0 at the property line. The drive lanes for security purposes are the only thing. You guys are probably gonna use something in the building that shades down. I don't know that we have a specific fixture, but when I was in for the planning commission last month, maybe it was earlier this month, seems like February's been a really long month. I talked to Rick, and he suggested that anybody that, we're working with, or us ourselves, try to use lighting that's approved by the,
Dark sky.
Dark
sky.
sky.
yeah. Yeah, he's very passionate about that, and I can appreciate that.
So looking at something like that would
You're not
be-
gonna have light towers.
No. If you have lights on your buildings, nobody is going to complain about lighting in their complex.
No.
They're going to complain about lighting in yours.
No, I understand.
Especially when it
And
shines in
and
your
again,
window.
having to be 0 lumens at the property line, we've got to use something very specific. it's very difficult to get to that point regardless, but ultimately, you know, again, these are a nice buffer between.
So looking at some innovative lighting solutions, you would be willing to do that?
Timers and things like that?
Well, whatever, and
Yeah, absolutely.
The only other question I have, I don't know if it's
And that's-
appropriate
that's
just
why we
between
didn't,
us
you know,
or if
we
we
had
should
the-
direct it to them. The doors themselves, are they like on a, like a push button kind of thing?
probably.
Typically, they wouldn't be, they would be manual.
I don't know, the big door. Are the doors going to be manual or?
Manual.
Power doors?
Manual.
Manual?
How do you keep them from just like slamming down, creating noise?
There's spring and stuff on
Is
Yeah.
it going to
that-
be open all night? I mean, is it going to have hours of
it,
operation?
of course.
Of course.
Yeah,
Yeah, this,
So-
you're
so it
not
wouldn't
doing
be
it as a
something-
24-hour facility, correct?
right, no.
Yeah,
no,
so it
we
wouldn't be
can't
something-
replace that.
People won't have access to their storage units
No,
whenever they want them?
no.
How do you keep them out?
There's a gate.
I see there's a gate
The
there.
keypad can be shut down at certain times.
Keep them down.
Okay.
So what are the hours?
We don't know, we haven't gotten that far yet.
What are you thinking?
7 is maybe 8 o'clock to. Whatever's going to
Daytime, basically.
Yeah.
If he does what Rick suggested, making
Yeah,
it
whatever's permissible, I think there might be
makes the variance.
something in the
You
ordinance
can't
about
make
that.
it then, even then, it just
Doesn't-
reduces
still doesn't
it.
get it.
No, it just reduces it,
It just
which,
reduces
and it
and
doesn't improve the layout any, as a matter of fact, it makes it worse.
Well, reducing the width of both buildings doesn't change the layout, but it doesn't get us there either.
No.
Right, but it keeps, I like Dana's point with this building being on the outside there,
Yeah.
rather than
As I say,
seeing
their
the doors,
configuration
but-
is probably as good as, you know, the shoes on tie.
I don't know that we have a point to approve to, though. That's where I'm trying to get to,
Well,
right?
I think, I've spent a lot of time talking to the planner and the attorney on this. As I say, I've got 2 books full of stuff and yellow tags all over this book. You've driven me to doing more than I
I
want
think
me
that
to.
part of our conditions in the Fifth Amendment may have talked about hours of operation. I don't know if it was specific to this.
I don't know if it did or not.
I know that there were certain uses that we,
Yeah, you eliminated it. Yeah.
I know that we discussed lighting at that meeting. You know, this being a special land use, I don't know that we were able to condition hours of operation or not.
Yeah, I can.
And it's been an hour, I mean, it's been a year since I came in for those meetings, so I don't remember.
Yeah, I have no idea what went on in those
Right.
meetings. I had no idea that there was a Fifth Amendment to the conditional agreement
Most people
either.
don't even know that there's a zoning agreement on that property.
Yeah, well, I knew there was a zoning agreement, but the amendment, anyway. As I say, I'm kind of torn on this one because where the property is, the configuration of the property with the residential and the senior center next to it, it is a magnet for complaints if the wrong, and I use that word wrong because there's no wrong, but I will say, if a use comes in there that is not at least as compatible with that area as this one is. This is the least, in my opinion, and the board certainly can say whatever you want. In my opinion, this is probably the least likely to generate problems for the neighbors, for the property owner, and for the business owners, as far as complaints and issues.
I agree with that, by the way.
And there are special conditions that we can place in addition to the normal, to some of them. We can't tell them how to use their property or what to put in the buildings, but there are other things that we can do. So the practical difficulty, I guess I have some thoughts on, and also the issue of the prior owner creating the situation that has caused us to have to be here tonight to talk about a variance. So I don't know if anybody has any other comments or thoughts.
You know, being the prior owner, I'm going to try to appeal to everybody's, soft side tonight. We've owned this property since, I think, 2002. And we all know what happened in '08 and '09. We helped participate in bringing the water and sewer to the corridor. We paid for that going into the ground, we paid for the road. There's hardships, there have been hardships with regard to detention. We put our own detention pond at the north end of the property by an ITC easement. And there were years, guys, where nobody was looking at commercial property. Nobody would, the fact that we went and did this rezoning and the conditional zoning agreement was a massive attempt to just try to survive. And that recession lasted a hell of a lot longer than anybody expected. Sales have been slim. I mean, our initial intent was to have this whole entire piece be manufacturing buildings. It's 98 acres. And then we came up with the concept of doing mixed-use development. We rezoned it, the RM1. I changed that configuration of the RM1 at least 3 times. The configuration of M1 3 times.
Should have done it a fourth time.
I mean, and then realistically, we all know the issues that the township has with the sewer capacity and how it was originally purchased from the village of Roman. There have been a lot of hardships that we've endured over the last 22 years, 23 years. And when it got down to it, I mean, finding these users to come out here now, Aragona Properties, B4 Acquisitions, Trilogy was a godsend. I mean, honestly, that's a gem of the community. My grandmother's in there, she's 97 years old. My sister's in-laws are in one of the apartment buildings. They love it there. I think we've tried real hard to bring some really good things to the community. But when it gets down to it, you're absolutely right. When you cut pieces of property off, we tried to sell this chunk to Trilogy. We tried to sell it to Aragona. It just didn't fit with anybody else's configuration. So I mean, if you want to discuss hardships, we've got them all day long for 22 years.
I have a question. Does the fact that the residential area next door being rental property give us any leeway to that condition?
No,
Okay.
it's a non-M1.
I just,
Yeah. Anything else?
Conditions that we're talking about in general and everything, we're talking about lighting, we're talking about a screen wall fence, you're talking about making the fence bigger, higher? It's 6 foot now, right?
no, she was just concerned that it is enclosed, right?
Yeah.
And you're looking at more
On
like-
on the inside of the L shape for sure.
Right.
But I still think there should be a 6-foot fence from on the east side all the way to the back, from
There is.
where the gate
There
is.
is.
There is.
Okay.
On the
There
east
is a
side,
fence over there.
I saw it
Is it a fence or, well, it looks like a
mentioned there
fence.
at the back.
It's a
on the
fence.
east side
Yeah.
towards Trilogy, there's a fence, and that goes all the way up to the north end of their property
Yeah.
line. It comes back down
See
to
the
the
little
south,
X's?
and then ties
That's
in
right
with.
here.
Oh, that's what that is.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
that's a fence, right. Okay.
Yeah, they have to have it enclosed, otherwise people will be walking in.
Yeah,
Yeah.
He's the one
it's
that
secure for both sides of the
Does
fence.
that give us any leeway to?
No, because it
Just on the
really
front
doesn't.
side.
Scale.
I mean, it's such a hodgepodge of everything, it's,
Really?
you got. Who's gonna complain? I mean,
Oh, the residents. that,
Residents on the rentals.
yeah. And the folks looking over that. I think if you have to mitigate that as much as you can, in all reality, somebody's going to complain about something, but, practically speaking, if there's ways to try to address some of it up front, at least, I think that's what should be done. As I say, I don't know what everyone else's thoughts are, but it would be nice if this wasn't before us tonight and just went in, but that's not the way life works today, evidently. But I think there are far worse uses of this piece of property than what's being proposed, and that's kind of what I'm wrestling with, is how do we come to some kind of a reasonable outcome that, as I say, protects the property owner, protects the residents, and from my perspective, protects the township from the kinds of issues. And, to be on a legal footing, that's what at least I've always tried to do, is make sure that, good, bad, or ugly, we are complying with the statute. And the township doesn't need to go to court over things like this. So, do you have anything else that you want to add?
So, a question on the conditioning. You mentioned earlier that the variance tonight follows suit with the property, correct?
Yes.
Would it be appropriate to, how do I want to say this? Would it be appropriate to condition the variance tonight predicated on the idea that it is mini storage or self-storage that goes in here? You can't do it on use, is what you were saying, correct?
I can't keep you from selling your property.
But if we agree to that condition, though, and sell it, first of all, if these guys were gonna sell it, they could get all of their approvals. I've seen this happen before. They get all of their approvals, site plan approved for X. They could do that. If their variance is conditioned on the fact that you have to do self-storage there in the configuration that's set up on these plans, then I think it puts to bed some of the concept of a more invasive use coming in.
But
So
we can't limit the use of your property, and you know that.
We can,
You can,
we could,
yeah.
they could.
But again, they can
They
turn.
can't when they sell it.
Yeah, we can't.
No, I mean.
We can put.
That's essentially what we did in the zoning agreement.
Yeah, but you didn't eliminate all the other ones and say, oh, we're going to have a
No.
self-storage.
No,
Yeah, I
but-
understand
But
that.
as an example, if these guys wanted to drop a document stating that whether they own it or sell it, this is going to be self-storage too, based on this variance.
Yeah, if that could be worked out, I think that would be a good thing to do.
Well, yeah, it would be a
because
good thing to
didn't
do.
it
My
say
understanding
it can
is
go
we
back to
can't do that.
M1?
But, let's put it this way. If there were a set of criteria that were attached, and that was one of them, and it didn't stand up to legal muster,
Obviously, we're not attorneys unless one of you are.
I know him.
I know a couple as well, but I guess in lieu of,
Mine's in jail.
Oh, that's not good.
Nice.
I guess if you guys were leaning towards turning us down completely tonight, I'd rather ask to be tabled and explore any options that we can in order to come up with something amicable. And look, if the attorneys come back and say, nah, man, you've never done that before, I don't even know if we can do it, whatever.
Well, I'll tell you what. Let's take about a 5-minute recess, and the township attorney told me to give her a call if I had a question. So I
Okay.
think that's a legitimate question I can ask her. So you were willing to sign an agreement that, I don't know how that works, that this is going to be
Yeah, I mean,
forever and a day, because the Fifth Amendment says otherwise.
well, the Fifth Amendment for the whole piece of property talks about what you can or can't do that we've already conditioned as the seller to these guys, right?
Period.
The big sticking point tonight we're talking about is 20 feet. And again, I beat it to death. You nearly at 100 feet to begin. Unless these guys want to concede and say, yeah, we can go down, if we can reach an agreement on 15 feet or something, and we'd have to talk about that. I mean, is there something palatable, to throw something out there?
Well, I think we can, I can see if I can get a hold of Chris. I hate to call her at home, but,
I look at it this way, if that's something legal that we could do, where we look at it and go, okay, the conditions of this variance are dictated by these three things. Lighting, the guarantee that it's going to be done as self-storage and stay as self-storage in perpetuity. Be sold as self-storage. That's the other thing. Once you build something like self-storage, it's valuable.
It's a cash cow.
People want that. And I don't mean just to come and rent it. If these guys ever decide, hey, we don't want to be in that business anymore.
Yeah, they're not gonna buy the property and
tear that
demolish the
down,
whole thing down.
Right, it's a commodity now.
yeah, but tomorrow it's nothing. It's a piece of property with some variances on it.
Until
is what it
we
is.
get to planning and until we get through that, you're absolutely right.
And you can still change it after then. Planning can't make you
I understand that.
build there
And-
what
and
you
look,
don't want to build, so.
And that's the big thing. We're here tonight with an honest foot forward. I think that what Carlo and I have told you is the idea that we've worked with the neighboring property owner to try to make something that buffers the more invasive uses that you're talking about with regard to noise and complaints and things like that, in order to make a nice, quiet, go-between here. These guys aren't here to try to get just a variance based on a variance. They're here to get a variance for this particular business model.
All right, let's take 5 minutes and let me make a phone call and see where we are. I don't particularly want to table this and hold you up another month, and I don't want us to come back here in a month just to rehash all of this stuff. We'll get an answer tonight, so.
All right.
We'll take a 5-minute recess at this point. Sounds good. 742, I guess. All right. That is not an enforceable condition that the ZBA can put on the conditions.
So you can't place it on. If we offer it, is it okay?
Not the ZBA.
Really? Okay. It was an idea.
Was a good idea. So, is there any further discussion here? All right. I guess we are at the point where we would make a motion.
Hey, guys, to tell you what, we discussed it in the recess as well. If we shrink the L-shaped building down to 10 feet deep and go with those wider units, then we would be asking for a 10-foot variance tonight instead of the 20. We'll shrink some buildings, try to get to 40 feet in lieu of the 30 that we've asked for this evening.
Without putting a driveway down that
Yeah,
backside.
we don't want a driveway on that side either. Look, and that's what Carl's been trying to say all night. I mean, the idea is that the buildings actually create the buffer, and that's why this is such a sweet deal here. I think you all see that. No, we want the L-shaped building. Whether the L-shaped building has to slide, into the drive lanes and we make the other buildings smaller, we're gonna have to look at the architectural aspect of it and make sure we do it the right way. We don't want to end up with odd-sized units in those buildings where people aren't going to rent them because they're not practical. We don't want to overspend on extra wide garage doors that we wouldn't have to put on. But there's a way to get to that point, just like you're saying, if we grab a couple feet out of this building and a few feet out of that one, and we get to that 40 feet in lieu of 30, we can accept that.
So I wonder if we can amend your application.
We can write it in right now.
And save, another meeting.
Couldn't you put that right in the motion as amended?
Well, I think it would be as amended. I think it'd have to be something like per the agreement.
Right, but I mean, we could put that right in the motion, though.
I suppose we could.
For an amended application?
Yeah, you can, I guess we could try to amend that, but also have it in the motion if there's a motion to approve. If there's not, we don't need anything, so.
Right.
All right. Anything further, or we beat it to death?
I think you beat it up pretty good, but I think that helps
All right.
in my head.
Is there anything else that you have to offer?
I'd just like to end with this is, in our family's, interest to build this ourselves. We're not selling it, we're not doing anything if we wanted it, we're building it ourselves. We're contractors, this is what we do. We are very particular with how things look, and, we do things the right way and then some. And we're good partners with the people we work for and work with, and look forward to be a good partner to the city, and, just hope you guys can help us.
Okay. You give me a minute, and I'll make the motion. How's that?
We were already
Absolutely.
discussing that when you were
We've already
talking to the lawyer.
decided that you're gonna make.
Yeah,
We motion that you make the motion.
It was 4-0.
Was it?
Yes. 'Cause you got notes.
There's a lot to it.
I got notes. Okay. Now I have to think about this.
I had a homeowners association meeting tonight too.
Oh, it won't be as much fun as this.
Got canceled, well, we canceled it, so that was good.
Yeah, yeah, it's important to hear those.
Just so you're gonna get along without me for a while.
And a lawyer coming, so, but one of them got sick.
So you didn't have to do it.
No, so
Or is it I got two goddamn
It was stressful. Yeah.
Okay, I will do it.
Yeah, like, didn't think this would take this long,
I know.
but there's a lot to it, right?
Yeah, I know, when I started reading through it, I was like, oh my gosh, there is a lot. You know, I wanted to go through too. And I was like,
So you're going to get down to what, 20 feet, 15 feet? What is it?
Well, we're asking for a 20-foot variance right now. And we're willing to go to 15 or 10 if we have to.
Would it help if they took their application and amended it so that they could
They're
turn
gonna
it into
have-
Dana?
Yeah, they're going to,
I have the most.
and they can sign it, but I just need to
Yeah.
make sure that we have,
There's 6 right there. There's 2.
I would say give me 15,
yeah.
personally.
As long as we can word it to get around it, I'm okay with
Yeah.
it. You're handling that, so.
Yeah, I guess I am. Who asked that question?
Which,
Who's going to make the motion?
It wasn't a question.
no, it wasn't, there's no
Who
question.
brought it up?
Yeah, he did it first.
He did it?
Did I?
So looking back at the plan, we can definitely take the center building down to 40 instead of 46. But Carla just brought it to my attention that because we've got storm and water running up that drive lane between the two buildings, you gotta have a 10-foot separation there, right?
Yeah.
So we can't shrink that drive lane. The only other space we could possibly take out would be about 4 feet. Well, we had 6 there, where we can take 4 out of the 20. That's 10. That would get us to 40 feet. Could we just take the 6 out of the center building?
And this way it would have like 3 equal.
We'd have 3 equal 20-foot spaces then. At least the spaces would be 20 feet deep.
So you're saying you're
So
going
we- so we'd be
to
at,
amend it to 6
14-foot variance.
Yeah.
I think that's a good idea.
I'm okay with that.
14-foot variance then.
How about 15?
15?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Thank you.
Okay. Okay.
You already had it written in your note, didn't you?
Yes. Okay. All right, let me try this then.
Slow.
Anybody
Slow.
else? Slow? No, I'll let you copy it. Okay?
Better.
Yeah.
Turn on your recorder on your phone. You have it.
Okay. I would move to approve the amended variance of 15 feet on parcel 01253000035 with the following special conditions. That is, per the application amended 22425, requesting a variance of 15 feet rather than the 20 feet. A maximum of 70 decibels at the property line during the day, and that's a maximum of 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. A maximum of 50 decibels at the property line on Sundays from noon to 5 o'clock. Minimum lighting requirements or less applied to the property. And look at dark sky if that's possible, and this will be forwarded to the Planning Commission so they're aware of the request. Add additional trees or trees to the landscaping plan to more effectively screen residential properties. Attach a copy of the Fifth Amendment to the conditional zoning agreement to the record of the ZBA meeting. Page 2. The reasons for the motion to approve: number one, strict enforcement of the zoning ordinance would cause a practical difficulty by limiting an approved use of the property and allow a less favorable use. Number two, there are no other properties that are similarly configured in the district. Additionally, the property is surrounded by residential units north and west of the property and a senior facility to the east of the property. Number three, the unique conditions and circumstances were created by the previous owner. However, the proposed use of the property serves the best interests of the surrounding properties and residents and allows an authorized use by the new property owner. Number four, other similar properties in the district would receive similar consideration. Number five, consistent with the intent of the Bruce Township zoning ordinance to provide an opportunity for a broad range of development in the community. I think it serves the best interest of the property owner, of the residents nearby, and also of the township. It's probably the best deal. So that is my motion.
I'll second that motion. Good
Motion
job.
is seconded. Are there any comments, further discussion?
That was well stated.
Roll call, Dana.
Zolno,
Aye.
That was a yes.
Barrett,
Yes.
Teller,
Yes.
Moss,
Yes.
Kalkofen.
Yes. So we need to address the technicality of amending that, and I will also run that by Chris. So if there is anything that needs to be done more formally, we can accomplish it without another meeting. I think that would be
That's preferable
what we would do.
for everybody.
Okay,
I gotta admit, that was the best motion I've heard out of any board in Bruce Township in my career.
That's why
You're
he's
not kidding me,
our
are you?
chairperson.
I truly commend you.
all right, well, congratulations, gentlemen. Welcome to
Thank you
Bruce
very much.
Township.
Thank you
And
for your concessions to make this work.
yeah, we're glad able to work it out. I think it'll be
Gonna be an
a
asset.
good project for
You
the.
do have
for
to
the
clean up all the sweat that you left on the floor there during the meeting.
I'm ready to order pizza here.
Dinner's on parallel.
Should have brought pizza with you.
That's right.
An hour ago.
Oh, no. All right, appreciate it. Thank you. Nice job.
Thanks for your time and
And, yeah, appreciate your cooperation. Thank you. Okay.
oh, do you have anything else
Bottle.
to?
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
Other-
I'll be in touch.
Oh, yeah, we got to get your authentication.
Yep,
You too, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so actually we can rip this top
You guys
one
need
off.
this?
And, right? Oh, wait, this is my one. So. Yes, we'll get rid of this one, right?
What does he need to do to amend that application?
So,
Have him change it and sign it and date it.
Okay.
Just do this one right now.
Just
And
take
then
this
if-
one right now?
Yeah, do it right now, then,
Okay.
like I say, I'll talk to Chris, and if takes anything beyond that, we'll just let you know.
I'll just put on your receipt amendment.
Change the 20 to 50.
Yeah, the amount.
For this?
Yeah,
Or we-
amended plan,
Yep, 52.
but they're gonna amend it again.
I'll just put today's
35,
date,
yeah.
24?
2/24.
Is that worded correctly, Tom, from 50 to 35?
Yeah.
Yes.
Just initial it and.
Yeah, just initial it and date it. It's also in the conditions, so I don't think it's a problem. I don't.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank
Thanks.
you. Yeah, you too, thank you.
No,
All right.
That's the most involved discussion I've
It's
ever
our
seen in
usual,
these
right?
or the regular meetings.
Yeah. Well, I think it was pretty good. I appreciate all the input too. Yeah, I say I appreciate the input.
Yeah,
I
that
will
was good.
forward this to us. I really,
You have more time in this than I want to talk about, I'll tell you that. Okay.
Yeah.
Item
they made a concession.
7B, discuss the draft application. And what this is a proposed application for the Zoning Board of Appeals process, rather than the one we have now. I don't think it doesn't give us a whole lot of information. This application is a draft, so we're looking for comments. I got probably 4 or 5 sample applications from Joe Tangari, Washington Township, and 3 or 4 other ones, 3 other ones, and kind of went through and just kind of plagiarized them, taking a look at what they did. You have that?
I'm looking for that. I put all my stuff.
Okay, it's stamped draft up on the side. So I kind of put this together, got some input from Dana, and are proposing that we take a look at this, make it whatever comments that are appropriate, and then my recommendation is going to be to pass it on to Joe Tangari, the planner, and Chris, the township attorney, let them review it and make sure that that there's not an issue with it anywhere, and then present, and Dana can present it to whoever within the township says yea or nay to these things. So I don't know if you've had a chance to look at it.
I looked at it, and I have a lot of moving it around. I'm not changing anything, just a minor few additions. I'll just...
Go ahead.
Would you want me? Okay. I'd like to see the actual, it's now listed as page 3. I'd like to see that come to be our page 1. And then number 2 would be where it says Bruce Township draft. And then page 2 would be 3.
Can I
Page
stop
3 would
you?
be 4.
Jenny, just for a second, when you said, I'm going to try to keep as you go here, when you said page 3, did you mean like the bottom of page 1?
Bottom of page, yes.
Yeah, because the
At the bottom.
applicant should stay at its present spot, the applicant.
Yeah, we would, at the top of there, where it says zoning board of appeals on page 3.
It's here. I just dug out of my packet. I didn't even see it till now.
Oh,
I had to find it. It was in my original packet, not the most recent.
I think the point is, the face sheet for this, you want to be the applicant information.
Yeah, most of the applications that I have kind of conform to that, just applicant name and that information kind of as the header rather than, I mean, the immediate information for me, procedurally, it helps to have the applicant's name.
So make it page 2, is that fine?
That's what I was wondering. So I was wondering why you wanted to move that up.
Yeah, because and then I was going to add, from the new page 3, bring where it says copies of the following are required, bring that to put on the old page 3.
Okay, so you're gonna end up with a
So-
list of what is needed,
Yes.
right?
Yeah, and one of the things that we don't have included either, now that you bring that up, is how many copies that you need, Dana. That needs to be added.
9 copies.
What does it say, 9?
Yep.
Yeah, hell, I wrote it.
I remember reading that somewhere.
Good, I'm glad you did. Yep, 9 copies. Sorry, go ahead, Jenny.
Okay.
I like that
So-
idea.
Actually, then, I guess I might put that at the very end then, because it's just like, I don't know,
It's sticking out there.
yeah, it just doesn't go anywhere with the application itself.
I think if we're going to move it, I would move it to page 2 because it talks about what happens if you don't provide all the information, so maybe that's a good place for it.
All right, well, let me just keep going, because what I was going to say then, okay, let's say you're on page 1 of the packet. I'd like to see where it says current zoning, and then the next thing under that, what page it would be on, would be the requests.
That's the
They're
very
from
next,
page 3,
that's the very next page, the request.
yeah.
Yeah, right here.
Right.
Yeah. First, current zoning, then requests.
Yeah.
Well, there's up above it, it says zoning of properties adjacent to parcel. That would be under the request. Wait,
Well, it kind of goes with current zoning
Yeah,
of
yeah.
that property.
okay, it would go under the very, very top line where it says zoning of properties adjacent to parcel, north, south, east, west. That would go right under where it says current zoning. Then you would say the request. What are you requesting?
That's what it says.
I'm saying,
You're saying to get this top line on page 2 onto line
Yeah, I
page
can-
1,
I can
which that's
definitely make-
formatting?
Yeah, I can definitely
Yeah.
make that,
yeah,
either change the line spacing or something to get that on, all on the first page.
and then at the very bottom of page, oh wait, in the middle of page 2, where it says article and section of zoning ordinance you are requesting a variance from, and, let's see, it goes article, variance in amount, appeal of administrative decision. I was thinking,
This is where she's talking about.
why don't we have the 9 different ordinance requirements, which are the subject of the variance? Why was that taken out? Those 9 different things you could check off from the old application.
I guess I'm not,
Which is on page 4, right? Setback signs, is that what you're looking for?
Right there, under request.
Requests.
How come we don't have those anymore on the new one? You see where I'm
Still
talking?
here. Yeah, they're on page 4.
Did I miss,
That's what you're looking for. right
on the
there,
new
right?
page 4?
Yes.
Oh, okay, great. Okay,
yeah.
Yeah,
So-
the height has to move over. I just noticed that's a typo. Height needs
Yeah,
to
they're
move
there.
over.
Who, what?
Current zoning, then the requests.
So to me, the way this flows.
I'm sorry. The top of page 2, there's this little line here, zoning of properties adjacent.
Yeah, you're saying that should be.
Remove
Those
that to
should
one.
go right under current zoning,
Yeah,
then the requests.
yeah, I'll get,
that-
I'll get that moved
Yeah,
up.
that's,
Okay,
change
just
the
switch them
format.
around a little bit.
Yeah, I just
Okay.
needed to get that in there.
So when I read this, right, any proposal that you get normally would be who's doing it, what are you asking for, and why, right? Who, what, why?
For the most part.
And this seems to flow in that, to me, this document flows that already, right? Who, what? The only question, to her point, was where do we put the articles of,
What do you gotta,
what do you,
what do you do and what happens if you don't?
right,
Yeah.
right.
I think maybe that should go at the end.
Maybe it should.
If you don't feel that
Yeah,
you
maybe
can
it
put
should
it
be
on
at the
top.
end.
To me, I want to know what I have to do first before I start signing anything. You know, it just makes more sense to me, okay, I'm going to need to gather that, I need that, I need that. And then, oh, here's the
This is just the
application.
rules, though, really.
Well, if you add the copies of the, copies of the following are required, if you put that on this page too,
So maybe you just put it in the,
you
Put
can
it at
take
the
it
back.
out of the body
just
and.
put it at the back.
Yeah, you can do that too. I mean,
The copies.
Doesn't really change a lot.
no, to me, it just makes more sense to kind of combine
Yeah,
a
but
couple
it's-
things.
But it's there, it gives the township what they don't have now, a reason not to try to rush getting things in the paper in the meeting, because there's nothing that really says you have to have it in by such and such a time, and if you don't, you're gonna have to wait another month. I think that's a debate that you have, isn't it, Dana? That you have nothing that you can tell them. Well, it says so-and-so.
Yeah, on that first page, it does.
But that's new, right? Your line.
Please submit
your line at the
1,000.
top.
Yes.
And 9 copies of all documentation, and then it says applications must be submitted at least 45 days prior to
No,
the
that's
scheduled
not new.
hearing.
That's on the old one.
That's on the old one.
That's on the old one.
Oh,
That's what I thought you were getting at, it was we didn't have anything that said when you had to get it in
But
by.
does it tell you what happens if you don't?
Okay.
And this says you have to wait a month if you don't.
Is that, I didn't see that.
Incomplete packets will be held until all
okay.
information is provided and scheduled at the next available meeting.
Yeah, okay. Gotcha.
That is helpful.
Yeah.
That line is helpful.
okay, so page 3, we're going to think about moving it to the very end?
Yeah, that's.
Okay,
I think you could do that.
with a combination of zoning board of appeals and then adding the copies of the following are required, both on one sheet.
Say that one more time.
Let's see,
Starting
from,
with, so moving the zoning, that one line that gets onto the second page, moving that onto then the second page will start with request,
yeah,
the way it is now. And then down to, and then that'll stay, but copies of the following are required will move to the last.
yes,
So you're gonna combine that with the zoning board of appeals statement.
yes,
Combine it, by that you mean,
So
On one
taking,
sheet.
taking from copies of following are required
yep,
at the bottom of 2,
yep,
putting that onto page 3 with the zoning board of appeals.
underneath it?
yes.
Okay.
And then putting all of that at the back. Now, at the back, does that mean
It would be page
pre-signatures?
No, I'd put it after.
Or do
after,
you want to just
Let-
pop it in
yeah.
after?
yeah.
Let the whole,
The
let
whole
it be a
document stand
separate,
alone?
let it be a separate page on the back.
Okay, that, I just,
And
Yeah.
Also, I was thinking, from page 2 at the very bottom, that where it says, by signing this application, you are acknowledging, and I think that should be moved to the bottom of the signature, where they sign,
Right above the signature.
yes. I think let's see, yeah. On page 4, it's at,
Where are you saying to move that?
move it to the, like, the bottom of page 4.
Either above or below the affidavit. I would put it,
It says
the last thing they read before they sign it would be that statement. Right?
Yeah, that makes sense, too, in that location.
So that becomes part of the final statement.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we might actually lose a sheet. We won't need 5 pages. I think it'll go down to 4 pages if we combine
It might,
that last sheet
it
by
might.
2.
Yeah.
Are you good
Okay,
with
so
what
that's
I've
just-
said so far?
That's just
Jane?
one signature then, rather than 2, right?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, so I think I have it that copies of the following are required goes to just above explanation.
One signature.
From the bottom of your page 2,
Yeah,
it says, by signing this application, that gets moved over to the bottom of the signature, or I mean, it gets moved to the signature page.
So they basically only have to sign one statement.
okay, that works, but where do you want, so you want that above,
The date.
The last
oh,
sentence in the final,
okay, below affidavit.
Yeah. I'm marking one up with letters and saying move to.
Yeah, mine's
Might-
pretty scratchy. I
might
don't
help
think I
you.
could follow
Yes,
it.
that would
I
help
had
me
to
a
look
lot,
at
and
it
then I'll
tomorrow.
make a copy and send it back to you
Okay.
as it was.
Then,
there you go.
if we look at the 4 questions, that we all have to just, go through. Number 1, no problem. Number 2 says, is the variance being requested due to the unique, and I'm,
Circumstances present on this parcel.
yeah, well, I'm thinking we should insert after unique, the words unusual, comma, or peculiar circumstances.
I think this is,
I took that from our old application. And then, after peculiar, I would say, where are my glasses? It's getting little there.
Just keep moving it further away.
Yeah, that
see,
doesn't work.
that is right out of the ordinance. The conditions and circumstances are unique, and that's all it says.
I know. And I like the idea that, it could be an unusual, could be unique, could be unusual or peculiar, comma, or would create an unnecessary hardship. We didn't even put that in there. On the top one, number 1, it says unnecessarily burdensome. Does that mean the same thing as unnecessary hardship?
Well, unnecessary hardship is down underneath explanation. Is that what you're looking for?
I would-
Any state, that whole sentence doesn't make sense, though.
Okay,
Just
let me
the way
just read
it's-
it. Yeah. Number 2, is the variance being requested due to unique, unusual, or peculiar circumstances present on this parcel? Or does it create unnecessary hardship? And then, if yes, you would add, if yes, explain.
I have a problem with, and I don't mean to interrupt you,
But none of those things are
In the ordinance.
in the ordinance, what's required.
Oh, I was just looking at the old application, so.
Yeah, no, it's not.
Okay, you don't,
Yeah, I wouldn't
gotcha.
want to, I wouldn't want to expand beyond what's already there.
Okay.
What's in the requirements.
I get it then. Do you think we should say, if yes, explain?
I think we can put lines underneath there, underneath all of those, Dana, so that they can write some kind of a response.
Like you have on one?
Yes.
Yes.
Is there any way we can rewrite, I'm of average intelligence, but when people ask me, what do we mean by that first, that with the standard for which the variance, can we reword that? That may be how it is worded in the ordinance, but it's more often than not that people ask me to interpret that, that
Statement.
That's the one I questioned. The very same thing.
Yeah, everyone does.
He said no.
Yeah, and when you said that, it reminded me that I should ask that question.
Yeah.
I'd ask that.
And I don't, well, you have to think about that one, because this is an application where you better know what you're really coming here for. And I think that says it,
Well,
but I know it's a little, I
I
don't
think
know,
it's-
could it be worded better? Do you think, number one, in some way, shape, or form?
Yeah, let's think, let's not try to go through it word by word tonight.
Okay.
If you have any suggestions, submit them to Dana.
All right.
Yeah, I don't want this to become a,
a think tank.
Wordsmithing session?
yeah.
All
So
right.
just a thought, though, if we're going to reword number one, do we want to reword it with the wording that gets back to the hardship? Like, something to the effect of, what is the hardship created by this particular, right? So we're getting right to you have to have a hardship, was it created, because number two is unique circumstances. Number three, was it, or one of them, 4, was it
The question in.
created by the applicant,
The
right?
question maybe you just take it right out of it, would the strict enforcement of the zoning ordinance cause a practical difficulty and deprive the owner of rights, and it says enjoyed by all other property owners, would it deprive the owner or become unnecessarily burdensome or something like that? Then it's pretty clear.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
take it
that's a
right
good
out of there.
idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like
So
that.
that's number one, or in my outdated zoning book.
Well, because then they're answering the questions that we need answered, right? Right up
Yeah,
front.
yeah, yeah.
Yes, I will bring 5 brand-new books for everyone. I'm sure that everyone's got some
Yeah, mine is
outdated
pretty
stuff.
outdated.
Yeah.
So am I, though.
Just a note, down in the explanation area in the bottom of 4, there seems to be a extra return in that sentence. It's just unusual, and then it drops a line to conditions. You
Oh,
see
yeah.
it? Right by your
Oh,
fingers.
yeah, yep.
Yep.
Well, whoever drafted this sentence number one should be on Jeopardy sometime, so we can figure out what it means.
With this, yeah, well, that is pretty much across the board in all of those things.
Yeah, and then I'm embarrassed when they ask me, and
You don't know.
I'm like, yeah.
Number 1 is to prevent you from putting this application in.
You don't like it, don't apply. Can't answer it?
This is a graduate from Weaselworth 101.
Yeah.
I mean, Ken Jennings couldn't figure this
No,
out.
Because down there, that's where where did I see that? It just says hardship, when we were talking about that. Also state, also state any unnecessary hardship that will result. How was that first one going to be? Did that bring in the hardship?
yeah.
Number
Yeah,
one, what you were saying?
Yeah, number
So
one.
would it be redundant to have that
No, it
again at
doesn't
the
ask for
bottom?
that. Deprive the owner of rights enjoyed by other owning property within the same donor. It doesn't talk about hardship.
Okay. Alrighty.
7.1C.
It's
What
6A1.
what if I add these things, and then I will send it out to you all?
Yeah, I was getting the
and you
section
can look
just so she
at it
can get right
and
to it.
Let me
Oh,
know if
okay,
there's
yeah.
something that, you know, I
7.1.C.
Yeah.
didn't pick up on.
Which ones we can laugh about?
Okay, and then it's
I
what?
think that's a good idea.
Item 6.
Anything else get us
Small
to
a,
comments from the,
Roman numeral 1.
Item 6.
Zoning humor.
yeah.
Oh, and with that,
I'm gonna give her this note so
Yeah.
she can.
Yeah. I guess at this point, I would say if you have any other comments or suggestions, put them on here and submit them to Dana. And unless they're substantial, I'm going to go ahead and ask her to pass them on to the planner and council. And then, I don't think, we can bring them back 1,000 times and have 1,000 one-word changes, and we're not going to do that. So I think if everybody is happy with adding the comments and getting them to her, we'll move on.
I was just going to suggest saying that they just need to fill out and return pages 1 through, if it turns out to be 3 or 4,
You have to return.
because they don't need to return this one, the last page. That's going to be their information that they're going to need to have. But they're going to turn this in, the first.
Well, that last page
They have
is
to
kind of like the
initial part of that.
checklist.
Once you move the copies, they're supposed to initial these,
Yeah, I
right?
think that becomes the end.
So
then.
you're gonna need all of them. You got initials on that last page now.
Do they get a copy of that?
Wait a minute.
I always make
Here.
copies.
Copies of the following are.
They get a copy of the
So
whole
we move
package.
this, right? To here, and then move the whole
On there.
thing to the end, but you got initials here.
Oh, I
You're gonna
see.
need the whole thing.
Okay, yeah, good point.
I do always make a copy,
And give it
you know.
back to
They leave with a copy.
Yeah.
Oh, so they'll have
Yeah.
it, good.
Yeah, I stamp it, the date I receive it, and then make them a copy.
Okay.
Okay,
Do we need a motion to,
No, that's not a receive and file, it was just
so
for
we're just
comment.
gonna-
Yeah,
yep.
it's just for comment.
I don't know if we needed to approve.
No,
So we're good?
yep. Do we have any communications? Anybody? I don't want to prolong this, but just a couple of things I have. Number one, if you haven't had the opportunity to look at the MSU Extension Zoning Board of Appeals trainings, I highly recommend that you take them. They don't take a whole lot of time. They're extremely informational, gives you a lot of information and good information. Probably some of the best I've seen in any training class or any situation that had to do with zoning board of appeals, so if you can do that. The other thing that I wanted to just briefly touch on, so you know what I guess how I operate outside of the meeting room. I am asked, and Dana knows, to meet prior to the meeting with like developers and builders and stuff to discuss it. I do not meet with them, I won't meet with them to discuss anything that has to do with the variance prior to the meeting. What I hear is what you hear. So I don't walk in with any advantage, just so you know that. It is not required, nor is it mandatory, but it is a best practice that if you go out on people's property to take a look at the scenario that's presented, if you meet the homeowner or anyone that asks you questions or asks you for opinions or whatever it is, your response should be that I really can't discuss this. I'm just here to assess the property. I'm just here to take a look at it. If you have a question for clarification, ask your question. But don't let them get you into a conversation where you give answers to questions that maybe you don't want to give. So your best, as I say, it is not a requirement, it's not in the statute, it's a best practice that you basically just tell them, I'm sorry, I can't discuss it, I'm just here to, eyeball the property or whatever it is. I think it's understood, and I don't know if it needs to be on there, that when they sign the application, it gives you access to the property. I'm not sure of that, if it's not stated. So I would ask them if there's somebody there, if you can look at the property, but again, I wouldn't discuss it.
Should we add that?
I was just thinking the same thing. Do we add that onto here?
I guess maybe that's a question you could ask Chris when you send it to her.
I will ask Chris about that.
That they be made aware that they may be called to allow access to the
Yeah, or knock on
property.
the door, or whatever it is, but I know it's common in planning and other scenarios to meet with people. I have met, I think one time we met with somebody, Dana, I think it was, or maybe it was before, but I had a person from the township there, and I told him the only reason I'll meet, it was to accommodate, let's put it that way. And all I would discuss is the process. So the meeting was very short. But I was asked to meet on this one, and I won't meet with them. So just so you know that, I want that up, so everyone's clear on it. You're free to do what you want. I can't tell you what to do, but
I think
that's-
everyone was included on Rick Hagelstein. Wasn't everyone on the
Yes,
the
I think
zoning
they
board
were.
included about ex parte communication?
Ex parte communication, yes.
Yeah, that's what kind of brought it up.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
Yeah, because you don't want them showing up and said, well, I met with him and he said I could do this, right?
well, and anything you say is subject to how it's heard, not how it's said.
Exactly.
And it's happened before
Oh, yeah.
that,
Oh, yeah.
an issue or two, yeah.
So, okay, this is dragged on longer than
Usual, huh?
normal. Anything else? I appreciate everybody's attention on this and going over it and having an idea of what's going on here. So, thank you all for that. So, motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Aye.
Moved, supported, meeting is adjourned. Thank you. Thank you, too.
Thank you, Riley. And what time is it?
Good job, gang.
It's about 8:30.